Welcome to Framework Fortune and welcome back to the Framework Fortune community. I'm your host Ben, and it is time for another episode of The Last Rip, where we take a look at the top NASDAQ and NYSE gainers on Thinkorswim for the day. And it was a Friday, very hot day for a Friday. There was plenty of rips, plenty of places to make some money. And I do have a couple of my trades that I'm going to go over in this video as well. But first, let's dive into the top 10 NASDAQ gainers. So for the second day in a row, we have SAML. This was one that popped up yesterday on this list, and it actually made a very nice rip today from that $4 to that $8.40 area. It was an OTC stock, so that's really why I didn't put it on my watch list. But if you did put it on your watch list and played it, very good job. Very nice rip. They also had some PR today, and you can see right there they plan to continue and dramatically increase its sales in the coming year with the launch of its next genuine line of luggage, and that was in Authority magazine. Apparently they are a luxury luggage company. Try to say that. It took me 4 takes just to get that sentence right. Anyway, but they had some good news. They had some good earnings just a while back, and they had this big sell-off, and it looks like investors are trying to come back in and push it back up. So, like I said, not one that I would trade, but it's on the list 2 days in a row, and it's an OTC stock, so there's money to be made anywhere. Number 2 on the list, we have SENS, and it looks like they had their monitoring device for glucose show accuracy in trial. So good PR, whatever their pharma thing that they're working on is. This was a monitoring device, had good results. That can get traders excited. And then it was close to being above all indicators. It had tested both of these areas, and then with this good news today popping up. And you can see right here on the 15-minute chart, it actually started popping in pre-market. As soon as that news come out early this morning, big pop, went sideways through pre-market. So when you see something hold its gains through the entire pre-market, that's a good sign that it possibly could make another leg up with all this consolidation. Now, market open, it did drop down, but it bounced and held this 200-day moving average before it actually ripped. And then still today, it is holding its gains all the way into after hours. So could be one to keep an eye on Monday. So number 3 is AMCS, and they had some good news. You can see they were up over 20%, on pace for largest percent increase since November. They just came out with some earnings a couple of days ago, and it had dropped off after the earnings, so the market reacted bad, and then it just, I guess, got too underbought. It hit down here at this 1275 area, which is pretty low on the chart, and actually back here is some resistance and support. You could draw a line straight across there, and it just got a nice bounce off of that. And you could see the bounce coming, and then the bounce held, and you got a 20-day crossover on the 5-minute over all these indicators, and it led to that nice rip. And AMSC has only about 28 million in float. So this was a good one to play. If you played it today, could be one to keep on watch as it now is pushed up to these higher prices. Maybe over the next couple of weeks, now that this 20 is pointing up, if the price continues to climb, we could see the 20 get over all those indicators, and then this would be really bullish. Number 4, we got WINT, and this one, as you can see right here, I did trade today, and I made a little $15 profit. This guy had some good PR. Right here you can see they were advancing several drug candidates to address cardiovascular conditions. Cardiovascular, that's the heart, anything like cancer or with heart problems, any of that, life-threatening illnesses. If somebody's got something that helps with it, there's usually a lot of money to be made on it, and that gets investors excited. And this is only 26 million in float around there, and it got over 139 million in volume. So huge volume on this low float stock, and it ripped in pre-market all the way from 2 all the way up to 296, went sideways, and then I caught it down here as it cracked below the 20 and bounced off of the 50. Because it had not got down to the 50, it's been bullish all of pre-market. And that 50-day held up, so we got a nice push up all the way to this 326 area. So you can see my positions was at 267, 257, and I sold quite a bit up here in this 316 area. Some of it I think was at 340. I sold out little bits at a time, and then I held 10 to see if this was going to continue to run, and when it cracked back below the 20-day and the 50-day, I got out. So ended up being just a $15 win because that other 10 shares dragging the profits down, but not a big deal. The other thing about this that was nice was on the chart there was this gap. Looking at the whole chart, you can see right through here and right through here all the way back, there's nothing but space. So there's no resistance or anything that could act as resistance through there. So when it opened up over the 50-day, it pretty much ran that whole gap right there. It didn't quite get to the top, but it got about 20-30 cents away. The 100-day moving average was in the way to stop it. So other than that, there was nothing else, and that was the thing that stopped it. So still, it was a good day trade, not a bad play. You can go check out the day trading live streams to see me trade this live. But let's get into the next one. So FTEC, which is a oil stock, fuel stock. We've been talking about oil stocks being hot lately, and this thing actually got a nice pop up. Looks like it may start going bullish. You can see the 20-day is pointing up, and these other indicators are right there, kind of close together. They're still a little spaced out, but if this starts to push up, it'll push those indicators together, and then we could see a nice breakout. In the day, it ran from 216 up to 322. So there wasn't any PR, but it's an oil stock, pretty low float, 30 million in shares, and it had a little crossover back in pre-market right here where the 20 crossed over everything, and then it made a nice move up, consolidated sideways, and then ripped off of the 20 for another move up. And it's still up in after hours. Looks like it may try to hold above all these indicators, so that's a possible play that could go into next week, especially if oil and commodities stay hot. So I'm actually going to add that to my watch list to keep an eye on for Monday. Next, we had LEDS, and this was one that was on the list yesterday, and I talked about it could be a possible runner today or next week. It basically just went sideways in pre-market and after hours until almost close to market open, and then right as soon as market open, you see that 20-day started to move away from the 50-day, and you got a nice big explosion. And this was a big rip. This was from about $17, $18 up to $28. So that's a $10 rip. If you only had 10 shares on a $10 rip, that is $100. If you've got a big account and you bought 1,000 shares of this and it runs 10,000, well, then you made $10,000. So these type of huge rips can really add a big profit to your account if you play them right. So this thing has pretty much been going bullish on the daily, and it's very low float, so I'm going to add it to the watch list for next week as well, because I think it could continue some of these pops. There was a lot of selling pressure that pushed it back down today, but it is Friday. A lot of swing traders do not like to trade over the weekend, so anybody who was swinging this probably locked in their profits, or maybe they just locked in their profits because they made enough money on it. So it'll be next week before we see new buyers start to come in, and we may pull back a little bit more first before we get another rip. We'll see, but it's definitely one I think that's going to have more big pops in the coming weeks. Here we got LWLG. This is an OTC stock. No PR, was just kind of on an uptrend over the past 4 or 5 days, and just really took off and exploded here today from about 254 up to 366. So I'm not really sure. This could be a pump and dump. I have no idea because there's no information of any press releases recently. And other than the chart pattern, it just... Oh, actually, I see why this ripped. So this does have an actual decent chart pattern. So right here, you draw this trend line down. Tops of these candles are connecting. And then you draw the trend line from the lows up right there. And you got a triangle. So the price of this was getting squeezed tighter and tighter, and it led to some buying that maybe pushed shorters out, and the shorters had to cover, so you got this explosive move out of this triangle. But these are the nice triangles you want to look for to get those nice rips up. So that's why that ripped. It didn't need news. it was already in a nice chart pattern. And so we got TRNF next, which only had 117,000 in volume, very low. Let's see, something about their CEO. Okay, so nothing really there, just some announcements, but no good information. That little bit of volume moved it almost $1.50, but it's OTC stock, and with that low volume, I wouldn't be messing with it at all. BBIG is next, and this is another one that I played today. If you were in the live stream and you were wondering how this finally turned out because I kept holding it, well, it never got below that 20-day except for a little bit here when it held up to 50-day. So I continue to hold, and you can see here I sold it way up here at this $5 area. And I was able to lock in $43 in profit. So I was locking out a little bit at a time up through here, but one of them was a little bit lower, so that averaged out at about $43. So very nice rip, getting about 90 cents a share, keeping me green on the week. It's been a pretty good week. I think I've won most of my trades. I did have a loss today on BTX. I jumped in there to start building a position at $10 right through here because it looked like it was consolidating, and then as soon as it cracked and this 20-day started crossing over and going bearish, I got out, and I only took a $5 loss. So the last one on the NASDAQ list is RESN. It's about 60 million in flow, only got 5 million in volume. Let's see if we have any PR. It just says shares of several companies in the technology sector are trading higher following strong earning results. So RESN getting some love from the other tech stocks that moved up today, and it made a pretty decent move. And you see that 20 crossed over right after pre-market over all the other indicators, and it just stayed bullish all day. So this is one of those ones you could have held all day until this 20 cracks. And it still hasn't cracked in after hours. So we could see this move some more next week. But we'll see. There's not actually any PR on it other than it getting some sympathy. So top on the NYSE, we got DXR. This did not have but 180,000 in volume. Very low float, 4 million in shares. And that little bit of buying was able to push this thing up from 958 to 1346. But this is not a chart pattern or anything that you can really trade or see to get into this. I mean, even if you got in down here at the crossover, up at this point when it just starts going sideways with checks like this, I wouldn't have held it. I mean, I would have got out. So it could have been a possible play, but not something that I would play. Next we have RHE. This stock was halted today but did not have any news. This is up 22%. Was just kind of going sideways there. All the indicators smushed together on the 5-minute, and then you see that 20 crossed over, and you got a nice move from 12 up to 18. Only about 1.5 million shares in the float, so very, very low float. Not sure why it ripped since it doesn't have any PR, but it could be maybe this chart pattern because it was almost bullish above all indicators. It had a big run back here and dipped down but stayed above the 50 the whole time, so it could have been one of those things where buyers just saw this and was like, oh, we could buy this up. Or it could have been a pump and dump. Hard to tell, not really sure. BDL has only 53,000 in volume, just ugly charts through here, not something I would trade. We got EH, so we got any PR here. So they've got an aerial passenger vehicle unmanned trial flight to Japan, a success. So unmanned flying passenger vehicle made a successful trip. So that is pretty big PR. And it says this is up 20%, only about 54 million shares, 10 million in volume. This would be an interesting stock to look into for maybe a long-term hold, because that is definitely some new age type of vehicle they are making there. But it did a crossover right here, and you can see when that EMA, the 20 crossed over the other EMAs, it ran from 28 up to 36. So that's a $10 ripper, and it got pushed back down right to that 100-day. So the 100-day holding up has some resistance, but definitely an interesting stock to take a look at it. I'm going to put it on my watch list, not really to watch it for a day trade, but just to check out for later because it's pretty cool. So I'm going to skip MDB. It's up 16%, $315. Only had 3 million in volume. Not really anything I'd be interested in trading in that price range. A little too expensive for me. I don't like that expensive of stocks because I can't buy as many shares, which means I can't make as much money most of the time. IDT only had 320,000 volume, so I'm not going to take a look at it. LX, bigger float as well, only had 4 million in volume, up about 1278. You can see the chart pattern there. Making a 20-day crossover, looks like 4 days ago, and just continuing that bull run. So that could be one to keep an eye on maybe, but it is getting kind of high, and it looks like you may have a downtrend starting to form in this area. So for this to continue to rip, I would look for a $13 break, which you can see in after hours it hit 13, but it's gotten rejected. So then we got WPG, which made a very nice move today, made a nice move 3 days ago, running all the way from 234 up to 589, had a little consolidation, and today getting another pop, bouncing off the 100 from 420 up to 571. So this thing can get going. 24 million in float, 19 million in volume, and this thing was able to make a pretty nice rip today. And you can see some nice U-shape action going on there, and then also the 20-day crossing all of these indicators. And once the 20 crossed them all, boom, big explosion. So nice play there. No PR on it, but from where it had some heat the other day and it held up, there's still buyers coming into it. So it has a lot of room to run, but this $6 area is going to be some strong resistance. And the last one is EM. It's only up 12%, only 418,000 in volume and 250 million shares. So I'm not going to cover that one either. So that's all the top gainers worth looking at today. You see 2 of those were trades that I day traded today and made a little bit of profit on. Good job to anybody in the live streams this morning who also made some profit. WINT, Dom Provencher, actually called out this morning, so shout out to Dom. And let me know your thoughts on any of these stocks I covered, or if you have any questions down in the comments below. And remember, we're at war with that YouTube algorithm, so smash him right in his little like button. Appreciate everybody joining me as always. Stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. Until next time.